Better late than never. Something that's definitely true about this video. It is the somewhat long-awaited final part of our first look at Adapt series. In this, we'll be looking at how to use the Adapt authoring tool itself, how to combine articles, blocks and components, and how you can build your first course. So, let's get into it. So, last time, we created the Adapt test course. We set all the global settings and button labels, and now we're ready to start building it. Before we do that, let's take a quick look at how it populates on the dashboard now that there is a course. Because we didn't input a cover image, it's used the Adapt default image, which is these lovely origami birds. Here we can choose to delete the course by tapping the dustbin in the right hand corner of the card, or open up a sub menu in the left hand corner by clicking the cog. Here we can edit a course, copy it, which duplicates it here on the dashboard. To show you what that looks like, you just click copy, and then you can change the name and all those global settings we looked at before. Hit the save button, and it creates it for you right away. This is really handy if you're using the same framework across several courses, or you've set up a kind of template to use with all the interactions in it that you can then copy and paste within each course. For now, let's delete this one as we no longer need it. When you do hit the delete button, it does just double check with you saying, once this is gone, it's gone, you can't get it back. So yep, we're sure we can delete that. The other option here is copy to ID clipboard, where you can paste it somewhere else later on, or indeed delete it, same as the button over on the right. Finally, you can double click the item to open it into edit mode. So now we've opened the course, we can see we're in the course structure screen. You can always see where you are using the breadcrumb along the top. We were in the dashboard that we can click to go back to, and now we're in the course structure screen. Here you can see the whole course, menus, submenus and pages all laid out visually for you, and it's also where you can add new elements, whether it be a page or submenu, and control key settings within the course. Now the key settings are over in this left hand menu here. You've got the option to go back to courses, which takes you back to the dashboard. And then you've got the preview course button. When you click on this, it will automatically generate a preview of your whole course in a new tab. Now the arrow to the right here has one drop down option, which is force rebuild. This will make Adapt completely rebuild that preview. This is really useful if you change something major, like adding an extension, a new component type, or change the theme, as just simply re-clicking preview course may just update the content and not some of the background interactivity. Below that, you have the Publish Course button. Now this is very different to working in most other tools, because when you hit this, you get no more options. It simply packages up the course in whatever way you've told it to elsewhere, and downloads it to your default downloads folder. Because of that, it's really important to make sure you go through your extensions and project settings before hitting the Publish Course button. I mean, once you've clicked it, you can do it again once you've changed things, but you just end up wasting a lot of your time. Below Publish Course, you have the Export Source option. Now if you remember, on the main dashboard you have the option to import source, and that's where you can import a course that someone's created and adapt into your instance. Well, this is what that button's for. Hitting Export Source packages your project up, downloads it into a zip folder, and you can then upload that to any other instance of Adapt. Below that, you have the project settings. These are the settings you set when creating the course, so you can reopen these at any time by clicking here and change any of them. You'll recognise these from the previous video. Next up, you have configuration settings. Now if you go into configuration settings, you'll see these are some really specific details that you may want to change as you develop the course. So, if you're creating a multi-language course, you can decide what the default language is. You can also decide the weighting of questions and whether or not question sections have an enforced locking or source maps available. You can also disable certain types of animations and set the specific details for your extensions. A good example of setting extension details is Spore, which is how you set up your SCORM tracking. This would be an important one to sort out before downloading your course. So all you do if you want to change the settings inside your extensions is click here and they expand out. So first of all, you'll decide whether SCORM's enabled, whether it submits scores, question states. Basically, you have total control over exactly what information is packaged up via the SCORM package and sent to the LMS. This is a lot more control than you often get inside an authoring tool, but it also gives you much more responsibility to actually think about what information you want to send. Are you, for instance, tracking completion, passed, failed, or incomplete? What goes across when someone fails an assessment, incomplete or failed or completed regardless of the assessment? How are you tracking completion? Are you requiring just completion of the content or also completion of the assessment, or both? You can set these in whichever way you want to, and throughout the whole section there are little guides, as always, the little informations icons that help you understand what you are and aren't selecting. You also here see some accessibility options allowing you to set the different ARIA levels and apply any extended functionality in the form of code here. You can also set your default screen sizes. This is excellent because it allows you to make a difference between phones, tablets, and sort of desktop or laptop devices manually. There's even little guides on the information icons about what kind of device will pull on the size that you're currently editing. So with that, let's go back to our editing dashboard, and next down we have the theme picker. The theme, as we discussed before, is what your course looks like. It controls pretty much everything, the colours, the fonts. If we go into there, you can see that you have a base theme that's pre-selected, vanilla. This is the one that comes pre-installed with Adapt, and you can also create presets. That means you can have multiple presets within the same theme. If you have more than one theme installed, they'll be seen here. As it is, we've just got the one. Here then you can see all the options available to you. Next up we have the menu picker. Going into menu picker, this allows us to choose, well, what menu we're going to use. In this instance I only have the box menu section installed, so we'll be using box menu. If you have other menu types installed as extensions, you'll be able to select them here, hit save, go back, and all the menus in your course will automatically be changed over. Finally, you have the option to manage extensions. Now these are the extensions that apply to this specific course. You'll see from here this is not the extension management screen where you could upload new extensions or change what is and isn't on by default. What you can do is control just what applies to this course. So you can see here, I've added the article blocks slider beyond the default selection. That's the extension we installed in the last video. So because I've added it to this list, I'll be able to use it in this course. If I wanted to have a language picker, because this was a multi-language course, I could simply click add here, and that extension is now included in this course. Going back is as simple as clicking the back to course structure button, and we are back where we started. And that is the left-hand menu. From here, we are ready to dive into the actual course structure page. So let's look at the course structure panel itself. Here we can see the first page of our course, handily named first page. Opening this to edit is exactly the same as when we open the course itself. We can double click it, we can hit the cog button here and have all the same options, with one addition being the colour label, which we'll look at in a little bit. And in the right hand corner, of course, we have the delete button, exactly the same as before. Now the way that the course structure page works is this is like a top-down view of your course. In most other authoring tools this might be the story view or the tree view or a high-level view. The idea being that from here you can plot out your entire course. You have to imagine all the time that above this, almost in this dark column over here, you have the main menu of the course. That's of course controlled in your project settings, you don't control that from here. Everything below that will appear as sections, be that submenus or pages from that main menu. To add pages and submenus, all you use are the buttons at the top here. add page and add submenu. Really simple. Now the way this works is that if you add a page, you get exactly what you see here. The page is here, you click it, nothing particularly happens here, you double click it, you can go in and edit the page. You can add multiple articles, blocks and components that we'll look at in more detail later in this video. But what if you want to add a submenu? Well, if you want to do that, you just click add submenu, it adds it in here. If I want that to come before this page, I can drag it up and move it around. It's a really simple visual interface. But how do I now add things into that submenu? Well, if I just click it, you'll see a new column appears. We get a nice pointy arrow sending us in that direction, and exactly the same set of controls are available. We can add pages, and we can add submenus, and we can add as many pages as we want, and as many submenus as we want. And sure enough, if we come down here and select a submenu, another column appears, and we can add a couple of pages there. We can click on this one. We don't get a new column to this side, but it replaces the one we just seen. We can add some submenus, go into there, add some more pages, add some pages here and another submenu. You can see this could pretty much go on indefinitely. Going back to the very start, you have the color label. This allows you to very quickly attach little colors to the edge of different sections. So let's tidy this up by deleting this submenu. When I do that, it's going to make sure I'm sure, and if I click yes, it's not only going to delete that, but everything inside it. So if you're ever going to do that, really do take a time to make sure you want to delete everything you've just done. So we're now left with our first page, and we're going to start editing it. Now at this point, I would suggest launching a preview of your course. Yes, it's pretty much empty, but it means you can very quickly flip between the preview and the editing screen and get a real feel for what you're doing. So, hit the preview course button. You'll see a new tab opens up, and here we see the main menu of our course. Now right now this looks really boring, I know, but it allows you to functionally see what you have built, and considering all we've done is maybe spent 5 minutes filling out some boxes, hey, we've built something and it works. We're already ahead of a lot of other authoring tools here. Here you can see the title, subtitle, body text and instructional text we set when creating this course, and you can see our first page in the box menu format. You can see I've already pre-filled it with the title, first page, some body text in that you'll learn stuff, the duration, 10 minutes, and you have a little completion bar there as well. The great thing is, with Adapt, because the completion settings are in the extensions that we've installed, you don't need to create any of the information that will work that bar. It will just happen. As people complete the different sections of this page, that bar will move. So, let's go in and take a look at that page. Very inspiring stuff, eh? Here you can see we have a page title, a subtitle, and you can see here we have a component title, and this is a text component. The only thing really worth drawing our attention to here so far is the little icon over here, and if we click that, we can see our progress through each of the sections. If this had more components in it, you would have a longer list of things that allows people to jump around to the bit they actually want to do, or if they're partway through it, they can jump back, view different sections. This is something you can turn on and off as you want to, or leave on if people want to have that freedom to move around. So we're done here, let's hit the back button, back to the main menu, and you can see that this bar is now full. Now what this bar looks like, the colours, you can change all of this as you change the theme later on, but already you can see that piece of functionality is there, working, you've not had to do anything for it. As you add things to the course, you'll be able to view them in preview, make sure you're happy with how things are going. But without further ado, let's jump into the actual course editor and really dive into how to build a course in Adapt. So in this video, I won't be going into absolutely every possible iteration of components and blocks and articles that you could create. What we're going to do is look at the very basic pieces of functionality you need to understand to be able to build a course in Adapt. Now we've already looked at pages and submenus, so let's go in and look at how to actually add content to your pages. First of all, double click and we go straight in. Here, you can see at the top that we have a first page banner. If we go into this, this effectively controls our page settings. Here, you can change what the page is called. So for instance, at the moment, this is called first page. If we wanted to change that to introduction, which is perhaps more typical, we can just type that in here. Now you can see, just like before, because this chain icon is enabled here, this automatically updates the display title. I could unchain this so I could set them separately, and I could make sure there was no display title. Again, for now, we'll leave it changed, we'll call it introduction. Subtitle. Here you can see we can have the option to create a subtitle that will appear on this page and the menu. We don't have to do this, we could just leave it blank, but we'll leave it there for now. Here we have the page body and the body. Now you can see here that if set, this text will be shown instead of the body text when the page is viewed. So that means that the body text down here is going to be set to be shown in that little menu box. And the page body is what you'll see when you actually go into the page itself. So I previously had this as two separate things, but what I'm going to do, just to save confusion, is make it the same. You can also add instructional text, HTML classes. You can decide what the button link will be on the main menu. If you remember, that just says view at the moment. Let's say we wanted to make that a little bit less formal and make it, let's go with an exclamation mark, which as we all know makes everything less formal. We can also set the duration here, so this is currently set to 10 minutes. I think this is probably more likely a 5-minute section. And we can also decide what, if anything, locks and unlocks this page in terms of the user having access to it. Now it might be because this is the first page we don't want to do anything. But we also might want to say, well actually they have to do this first and then they can do the second page, in which case we would update this section on the second page. Below that, we can set page classes about whether something is optional, whether it's available from the start, whether it's hidden, whether it's visible to users. As it is, we just want to leave it as available and visible. We can also set things like the requirements for completion, how many components they have to complete, and decide how extensions work on this page. So for instance, we have the page level progress. We tracked this before where you could see exactly what sections had been completed. So it's enabled, it will show page completion. Do we want it to show an indicator that shows whether they're able to go to the next page? So yes, we'd like to add that. Should it exclude assessments? No, we want to include assessments. They have to be completed as well, so we'll leave that as is. And what about bookmarking? Is bookmarking enabled? Will they be able to come straight back? Here you have the option to decide exactly how that works. So does it inherit, page, block, or component? Basically, what level of detail does it track? Here you can add a graphic with alternative text. Now this will show on the main menu. So think about the sort of sizing you've got on the Adapt Test Course main menu here. Inside this little box, do we want there to be an image? I would say, yeah, why not? So let's add one. We're going to select an asset. You can see it's brought up the asset management screen. We have a couple of options. We can select anything that we pre-added. Since we last were here, I added in these placeholder images that we can use today, but we also have the complete icon that we added in the last video. For the sake of this, I'm just going to add a square image placeholder and hit the done button over here in the top right. There's also a cancel button here if you change your mind and no longer want to add anything, but I'm going to say done. I'm going to add some alternative text. This is an image placeholder. You should of course add the correct alternative text for whatever you're creating. Here you can see how the theme settings are applied to this page. Here you can set things like the background image and the style that's applied to that, the different responsive classes. This is where you can set those screen sizes again. This allows you to basically diverge from your main theme on a page by page basis. If you don't fill out, for instance, the responsive classes, it will default to what the theme is telling it to do. Here you can also set page heading background images, styles, and again the minimum height for the header on the page. Let's say we do want to add something here. I would like the page header background image to use the wide placeholder image that I added earlier. There we go. Now, it also gives me the option to add medium and small. Now if I do this, this is what it's going to use on a tablet, this is what it's going to use on mobile. Now, I don't have smaller versions of this image at the moment, but if I wanted them to appear on those versions, I would need to add them in, otherwise it's going to strip that out. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It may be that on a desktop environment, you want something to have, a little nice visual add-on image. It doesn't add anything to the learning, but it just makes it more visually appealing. However, in a mobile interaction where every pixel on the screen needs to be used carefully, you may decide that you don't want that and you just want to have the heading text there, in which case, simply leave this blank. Here you can choose different background image styles for the image we've just uploaded. For instance, do you want the image to repeat? Do you want to set the size of the background image? And do you want to set the position of the background image? So for me, I don't want this to repeat, I just want this to be a banner image behind the heading. In terms of size, I would just like it to be automatic, so it will decide what fits best in the space that's available. And we can set the position, so I'm going to set the position to be center top, so that it's as close to a banner style image as possible. And finally, you can set a minimum height. I'm going to leave this as default as the image will set that itself. So with all that set up, I'm going to hit save. We've made a few small changes there, so what I am going to say is preview course and see how that uploads. Here we can now see that we've got the image I just added, the text I changed, the duration has changed. Now because I've activated the tracker, it's actually added 2 of them. You can change this if you don't want both. For now I'm going to leave that as is and go into the page. You can see here now it's added the tracker to the title of the page, so I can immediately see how far I've gone through, and added the image in the best way it thought to. Now if I wanted to change this to be, say, full spread, or to come down further, or capture a different part of the image as the main focus, that's where those image size and position settings could be used. However, I've added a little bit of an image, I'm fine with that. Let's go back to our authoring tool, and now we are done, for now, in this introduction section at the top. This section will be present on every page you create, allowing you to decide exactly how it appears on the main menu, and exactly how the banner section at the top of the page will be shown. Next up, we get onto our actual course content. Now, the important thing to remember when authoring in Adapt is that everything works in articles, blocks, and components. Articles are like top-level containers. You can have multiple blocks and components within an article. The next step down, and the next level within our article, are our blocks. Blocks can contain 1 full width or 2 half width components. Blocks allow you to control the layout and look and feel of what things are looking like, but you can also add some basic information into the block itself. Components are your core interactions. We spoke about them last time. These are what your users interact with. This is where you're going to build your course content. As we're new to working in Adapt, let's work from the top down and open up this first article. When we click on it, we have the same options as usual. You have over here the bin icon to delete this article. Bear in mind that, like those submenus on the main screen, if you delete an article, you're also deleting all the blocks and components within them. And once you delete something, you're not getting it back. Be very careful about this button. To the right, you also have a minimize button. So let's maximize this again so we can get back into editing. We'll start with the article. Click edit and we get again a very familiar looking screen. Here we can give the article a name and decide whether or not it will display. So you'll notice if we go back to our preview and into this section, we have the component title but not the block or the article. Now this is because when we come back to our editor, the display title is left blank and only the title box, which is what we see in the editor, is filled out. What having article text does allow you to do is have different styles for articles versus blocks versus components, and this can help you create a more dynamic look and feel for your course. As it is, I'm going to leave this blank here, but just like any of the other things we've looked at so far, I could add body text, I could use this to add instructional text, and I can add classes. The extensions that apply to it I could make this an assessment article. This will become very important if I were to say put question elements within here. Article level control is, I think, among the most useful things here. You can decide whether or not it's going to use different extensions, such as the block slider. So as with all the other sections we viewed, you can also set classes pulling in sections from the CSS you added to the theme, but you can also decide in this bottom section how the theme applies at article level. The level of control this gives you over the look and feel of your course is really quite impressive for this kind of tool. So those are the article settings. We're going to leave this broadly as it is, although I've just renamed it. Hit the save button. So next up, let's look at the block. Much the same, if we go into the block, we have all the same options. Let's edit it, and would you look at that, it's an almost identical page. I can change the title, the display title, add body text and instruction text. I can pull in classes, decide on whether it's optional or visible, apply different extensions, look at the on-screen classes, and apply different theme settings. I also have the option to turn a block into a divider block. Not sure what that is? It literally is a block that acts as a divider class. It leaves a gap, sometimes a line, depending on how you've got it set. This is a great way of adding a little bit of split between sections within the same article, and you may want to have very different blocks within the same article so that you stick to the same article theme settings, the same topic, the same look and feel. But most importantly, it just gives you that little bit of ability to control what your page looks like. We shan't spend any more time on block as it's very similar to article, and this video is already pretty long. Let's head back and dive into probably the most important thing here, the component. This is what your users really interact with. As I mentioned before, you can put one full width component into one block, or two half-width components. Changing the width is super easy. You've got these two little arrows here to decide whether you want to go to the left or to the right, or the both way arrow of course makes it full width. Let's open up this very basic text component to start with, just to see what the editing screen looks like. You'll see again all the same controls. Now, you're probably getting rather tired of looking at screens that look almost identical, but this is one of the big benefits of Adapt. Once you get to know the layout of one screen, you kind of know everything. You've got your title and your display title. You can chain them, make them openly editable, or get rid of the display title altogether. As it is, once again, I prefer to leave them chained just so that I know that what I'm seeing in the editor is what the user is seeing. So because this is a text component, all we really see here is a section for some body text where we can add in whatever we want. Here you can leave some instructions, so it's entirely possible this is going to be a small introductory piece to this course or this page, and then you want some instructions underneath, like, scroll down to continue, whatever it might be. You can also add all the usual settings, classes, visibility controls, apply the different extensions that might apply to this section, and choose any on-screen classes that may apply from the previously entered CSS. So again, lots and lots of control. So let's have a look at adding something new. If I want to add a new component, I've got three choices. I could change the width of this text component, I could add a new block, and then add the component within there, that would sit within the same article, or I could start a new article with a new block and a new component. As it is, what I want to do here is actually just add a new block inside my existing article and then add a new component. Here you can see all the available components currently installed in my instance of Adapt. You have a search bar at the top that allows you to find them very quickly, although at this point, because I've only really added like two on top of the bog standard ones that come with the framework, I really don't need to search. It's only a short scroll down to the very bottom. But let's have a quick look through at what's already available. So a lot of these are fairly simple. Accordions are exactly what you'd expect. An assessment results section, a screen blank. Blinds is one of the elements that I've installed myself, along with flip cards. You can add a graphic multiple choice question, a hot graphic, an image slider, matched questions, media, multiple choice questions, narratives. Narratives are fantastic because they combine both text and an image and a simple click through. It's a bit like a carousel really. It's a great way of presenting story-based content or step-by-step content. You can add a question component of a slider. That really allows you to respond as a scale, whether that's going to be a Likert scale, how confident they are in something. Great if you're asking both, do you know the answer and how confident are you in your answer? Text components, which you've seen at the top, most basic component in any e-learning tool, and text input. So let's keep things really simple. I would like to add an accordion. So I'm going to click that and it'll add to left, add full, or add to right. Well, I'd like to add this to the left for now, so they're fairly stumpy accordions. And then let's go in and name these. So let's call these stumpy accordions. We can add some body text. You might use that to give a basic introduction to what you're talking about. If you want to add instructional text, you can do. And here you kind of see all the same stuff you'd expect. The settings, the extensions, the on-screen classes. And that's because at the moment we've not added any accordion items. For this, we simply click the Add button, and again on the right hand side we get an editing panel where I can name the accordion, add some text, I can add a graphic, we can add some alt text. You can give an attribution. So if this image comes from somewhere that you need to reference or want to reference, especially in an academic setting, this is where you can put that information. And you can apply any classes that you want to apply. Again, great for pulling in that information you set up at the start with your code. Let's hit OK. And we have now added an accordion. Here you have some more detailed controls. So items should auto collapse, i.e. when you click on another one, the one above it or the one you had open previously closes. And do you want the first accordion to be pre-expanded? I say no to that. So I'm going to click save. You can see here we now have our Stumpy Accordions section. Let's preview the course. You can see the rebuild is taking slightly longer this time because I've added a whole new component. We're going to go into here, and you can see straight away it's built out an accordion for us with our heading, our body text, our instructional text, the title we set, and when I click that, I've got the text and the image, and the alternative text is of course behind the image, so we can't see it as such at the moment. But you can see straight away how this is a really simple and easy to use way of building e-learning. Let's go back to the menu, and this time let's add some flip cards. Now, I'm not saying this is particularly great e-learning design, but what it does show you is how easy and quick it is to add stuff. Add our instructional text, and let's add some flip cards. So we can put a graphic on the front. Let's say we're going to use this lovely tick button just here, and then we're going to add some text to the back. The most important thing though is to make sure that you have a title put in as well. You can add alt text to the front. Let's click OK. We've now added our flip card. We can see we've got the same settings, extension controls, and on-screen classes available to us. Here we're just going to hit save and then preview the course. As we go in now, we'll see we have our two new components, our accordion and our flip card. Now obviously these are horribly designed, the background colour looks terrible, the back looks bad. We can change all of this in our theme, but you can see that the functionality is immediately there, no additional controls required. You can also see that as we've added these components, they've automatically been added in to the section on the menu over here. Now that we've added different components, we've had a look at the block and we've had a look at the article level control, you're ready to go ahead and build your first course in Adapt. Thanks for sticking with me through to the very end of this video. I know it was another long one, but hopefully you found this really useful. Please do let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want or need to know about Adapt, and hey, share your work. Once you've finished building your first course, send us a review link. Let's have a look at it and see what we're all building using this fantastic open source tool. If you did enjoy this video or found it useful, please leave a comment letting me know, and hey, consider sharing it with a friend or a colleague who you think would find this useful. Remember to like and subscribe before you go, and if you really want to help the channel out and found this useful, consider subscribing on Patreon for as little as £1 per month.